Right, welcome back to my channel. This morning, I interviewed Clive Tyldesley for my YouTube channel. Now, obviously my laptop died near enough near the end, so I never got to ask him a few other questions, but Clive, I just want to say thank you for taking your time out to chat with me. And yeah, honestly guys, go over and check it out. It'll be out tomorrow morning. I'll try and get out tonight, but yeah, it'll be tomorrow night. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Let's try and get to 2,200 subscribers before the next Hibs game, which is next Saturday. Let's go.
Send it to you afterwards, Dan.
Thanks. So, thank you for joining me on DPT Meets, where I'm joined by Clive Tyldesley, a well-known voice from ITV. So I want to sort of take me back to where it all began.
For me, it began with an ambition to be a football commentator, an ambition that I probably had from the age of 10, 11, an ambition that I cradled through my teenage years and took to school with me and took to university with me. And as I graduated from university, not with a media degree, but with an economics and politics degree, I managed to get my first big break. And your first break is your biggest break. There was a new commercial radio station opening in Nottingham, my university city, as I graduated. They had some vacancies for some runners, T-boys, and I managed to convince the program controller to give one of those jobs to me. So I got in my foot in the door, did a little bit of everything. In the first couple of months, I had a late night rock show. I was a DJ. I volunteered to do some news reading and some sports reporting, but I always had my heart set on doing this, and that's where I got my first opportunity. And once I seized that, they weren't going to kick me out.
Now you've obviously done big games. You've done a few World Cups.
Yeah, every World Cup since 1994.
Jeez. I can remember now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was younger, did Man U play Barcelona in the Champions League?
Yeah.
On ITV.
Yeah, Manchester United played Barcelona in a couple of critical games. In the season that they won the Champions League in Barcelona against Bayern Munich, they were drawn against Barcelona in the group phase, played out two wonderful 3-3 draws. But probably the more memorable game came a little bit later, 2008, when Paul Scholes scored a winner against Barcelona, which carried Manchester United forward towards the final. Yeah, I've been very lucky to I've been lucky full stop, but I've been lucky to be around the Champions League at a time when particularly English clubs started to have some renewed success in the competition, and the television audiences for those games were 10, 12, 15 million people. So they were, I was fortunate to be in in the new camp when Manchester United won, in Istanbul when Liverpool won, in Munich when Chelsea won. So yeah, I commentated on all of those games to massive audiences, and I think that television viewing is a little different now. Obviously, quite a lot of the big games are behind a paywall. You have to be a subscriber to Sky or to TNT or whichever company holds the rights. And we watch our media a little differently. We've all got a few different screens. So whereas maybe 15 years ago, people tended to gather around one screen in the house to watch together, now, we watch independently, or we go to a sports bar or whatever. So there isn't quite the same emphasis or attention maybe on the commentator. I'm not sure that people even hear the commentator in the sports bar. So yeah, I was kind of lucky in those years when the Champions League really took a hold on our football senses to be ITV's main commentator then, and in many ways to be the voice of a lot of those games. Yeah.
Now, how much preparation goes into each game?
Well, the simple answer to that, Darren, is how much work do you do? Enough. You do enough to feel comfortable and confident when the light comes on and the studio hands to you. You kind of owe it to yourself and to your good fortune to do the job, to know more about the backdrop to any game than anybody who's watching or listening. So yeah, a lot of preparation goes into, a lot of research goes into the preparation for a game. But in many ways, anybody with time on their hands can do the prep, particularly now in the internet age. The information is there literally at our fingertips. I think if there is a skill to the job, it is how you use the information, so that hopefully no more than about 10% of all the intel that I've got on my commentary charts actually goes to air. Hopefully you use only the 10% that's relevant to the narrative of the game that as it develops. But it's some people say, is it like a safety net? I think of it more as a comfort blanket, just sort of something that when I've got those notes there in front of me, it just makes me feel more at ease. It makes me, when I look down at them, I just feel, well, if I mess up, and I can mess up, we can all mess up, then it's down to me. It's not down to a lack of preparation or a lack of being ready. So those 2 or 3 days that you spend before a game, getting your preparations there on those commentary charts, are just a requirement of the job. Why wouldn't you do it? You're lucky to do the job. You want to do it as well as you possibly can. Yeah, you always do the preparation.
Now, how hard? Now, this day and age, there's all different names. How can you pronounce some of the guys' names?
Well, some languages are more difficult than others. I'm not a linguist. I'm not fluent in any language other than English, and some people might say I'm not even very fluent in English. And so I kind of have a rule that most of my audience will be English speaking, whether I was commentating to ITV or now, as I tend to, most of the games I do are for CBS, which is an American sports network. So I commentate on the Champions League for them, but I'm commentating principally to an English speaking audience. And so whilst I do as much research as I can to pronounce the names correctly, I try to stop at using sounds that are not common in the English language. So if I'm commentating on, say, Martin Zubimendi, that's how I would pronounce it rather than Thubimendi, because if I try to do the which the Spaniards is natural to them, it's not natural to me, so I'll probably get it wrong. So I kind of anglicize names like that. But I mean, there is no real logic to it because Paris Saint-Germain play in Paris. I mean, why? I mean, why don't they play in Paris, or why aren't they Paris Saint-Germain? But it's a familiarity. When you're commentating on PSG, people expect you to call them Paris Saint-Germain. But where do they play? They play in Paris. So there's no logic to it, really. You've just got to try to find some middle ground, which doesn't upset too many people. But it's very easy as a commentator to upset a lot of people. What I never say is Scotch. I mean, there are certain things that you learn very, very quickly. People from Scotland are Scottish. They are not Scotch. And you learn that right from a very early age. And you only make mistakes like that once. So I try to be respectful with the pronunciations, and I try to get them as correct as possible, but I do anglicize them.
Now, you've commentated on a couple of Rangers games.
More than a couple.
I was like, aye. So how did that come about to be a commentator for Rangers?
I never thought that I would ever commentate for a football club's TV channel. I suppose because I've always been lucky to work for a television network where you were very neutral, or you try to be very neutral. So if you're commentating on Hibs Hearts, or you're commentating on Rangers Celtic, you try to be as down the center as you possibly can, bearing in mind that everybody watching is one or the other. They're either maroon or green, or blue or green. And you've got to live with that, but you're trying to go down the center. But after ITV decided to replace me, I had some time on my hands, and one of the offers that I received, and we were going into the COVID era, was from Rangers Television. And they invited me to go up and commentate on the home games in an empty Ibrox, because they were providing Rangers Television coverage of games free to their season ticket holders. And I said no initially, but they were very persistent, and they really, really wanted me to go up there. Stephen Gerrard and Gary McAllister are friends of mine, and they were in charge at the time. My wife's family, my wife is Scottish, and her family live in Edinburgh. So it was a good opportunity at a time when travel was restricted, to get to Scotland and see them occasionally, albeit socially distanced. And once it started, of course, Rangers, I commentated only on the home games, and Rangers won every single one of them that season. So in many ways, I guess my voice, along with Emma Dodds and Neil McCann, and the other people that worked on those broadcasts, and we had, Ali did some, and Graham Soons came up and did a few. The late Walter Smith was in studio for a couple of games. So it was wonderful, to work with people of that caliber, and obviously wonderful to be involved with a success. For Rangers fans who couldn't get to Ibrox at that time, my voice was their link to their team in a wonderfully successful season, and I did enjoy it very much. I learned a lot about Glasgow football, and what to say and what not to say, what you can say, what you certainly can't say. I commentated on many big games at Celtic Park, and I love the atmosphere at Celtic Park. A couple of the actually most memorable Champions League games I've ever commentated on being at Celtic Park. But when you're commentating for Rangers TV, you can't say that.
No, you can't.
It's not permissible. Well, you've got to say it very carefully. You've got to say it sensitively. You've got to respect people's feelings about football, and people's feelings about football run very deeply indeed. And it is strangely very easy to offend people when you're talking about football. And so there is a responsibility that goes with the job, and that responsibility is a little different when you're working for Rangers TV than it is if you're working for ITV or Press TV or for CBS. So yeah, it was a good experience for those 18 months or so. Yeah, and I was very grateful to Rangers for giving me that opportunity at a time when I had work. I did actually say that if Celtic TV had approached me, I would have said yes to them, and nobody in Glasgow ever understood that. But actually, some of my very best friends in football, yeah, I mean, Martin O'Neill was my first big friend in football. People like Roy Keane and Gordon Strachan, and Mick McCarthy are really, really good friends. So, I have an association with Celtic. There's nothing I can do with it. But equally, Graham Souness is one of my closest friends. And I knew Walter very well. And I obviously work a lot with Ali McCoy. So, I'm afraid I've got a foot in each camp. And people in Glasgow just have to learn to live with the fact that I like both clubs.
So what were you like growing up? Were you like calm and collective, or were you a wee bit,
I think
drinking a lot or anything like that?
I was a university student for 3 years, and you certainly learn how to love life when you go to university. Particularly, it's I was my roots are in the Manchester area, so I was nearly 100 miles from home. So I was very much out on my own and enjoying life as a teenager. And I never really came home, obviously, because I got that first job in Nottingham. So I stayed there for another 18 months and then moved on to Merseyside to work for a local radio station. I had a really exciting time in Merseyside football. I arrived there in 1977, just as Liverpool were winning their first European Cup, first Champions League. Everton became a really successful team in the mid-1980s. And I was the same age as the players then, Darren, you see. So they were all friends of mine. It was an era when you could go for a beer with them after the game, which obviously doesn't happen anymore. So the link between the media and the game was much closer when I started in the late 70s and into the 1980s. And a lot of my closest friends in football are, from friends from that era, when I would travel with the team on the team coach or on a flight to a European game, and spend an awful lot of time with the guys who became lifelong friends. And it was a wonderful time to have that first involvement. But I suppose as I grew older, I became a little less wild. Yes, we all do.
So who is your best friend, like on the pundit commentary or pundit team?
I certainly wouldn't upset all the others by naming one. I mean, at our wedding, Gareth Southgate was at our wedding. Martin O'Neill was at our wedding. Chris Coleman was at our wedding. I turned 70 this year, and Martin was at the birthday dinner, and Graham Souness was at the birthday dinner, and so on. And some of those guys are very, very close friends. And it's strange when you're commentating on a game involving a friend. People often ask me, who do you support? I get asked all the time. I'm surprised you haven't asked me yet. I grew up as a Manchester United fan. I'm from that part of the world. My dad was a big United fan, took me to Old Trafford when I was 4 or 5 years of age. But when I started work in Nottingham, when we were talking about, suddenly I was mixing all the time with the Nottingham Forest players initially, and then when I moved to Merseyside, and they were my mates, and I was commentating on my mates, and that Manchester United thing left me then. And to this day, who do I support? I support my friends. I want them to do well. And so if you're commentating on an England game and Gareth's the manager, it's a strange involvement. And it's difficult if the team's not playing very well and lose to be critical of somebody who, is a really, really good friend, or to infer any criticism of them. So I wouldn't name one above the others, because there isn't one in that sense. There are a lot of people that I've met through the game, extraordinary people. I mean, achievers, people that are successful in football have to be talented, but they also have to have a slightly different mindset to most of us. And I've learned a lot from being around those people and their dedication and their motivation. They've grabbed their opportunities in life, and that's a wonderful example to all of us.
Who's the craziest you've worked with?
Craziest I've worked with. You want me to say McCoy's, don't you?
No. I mean, say him if you want, like.
Ali is everything you would expect him to be. If you've never met him, you would form an impression of him from just listening to him and watching him. And he is that man. He loves life. He's usually got a smile on his face. He's wonderful company. And certainly once upon a time when I first knew him, he could be pretty crazy. But I don't know. I think that when you watch managers on the touchline, they all look a bit crazy, don't they? I mean, even the ones who are kind of bottling it up and keeping it in, you sense that any moment now they could snap. And then there are the ones like Diego Simeone who are like jumping around all the time and shouting and screaming. You're a bit of Jurgen Klopp and the kind of touchline dramatists. And then are they like that when they get home? No, they're not. No, they calm down, and we're all a bit crazy when we're watching football. It does something to us, our involvement, our allegiances, our loyalties to our team. We love them, and then we hate them, and then we love them again. So it does stir up a range of emotions, the game, which, I mean, you've got to be careful how you use a word like crazy, but it does sort of bring us out of ourselves and bring a more kind of extrovert side, I think, out of us from time to time. And that's the wonder of football. That's why you need a commentator. I mean, if it was chess that we all loved rather than football, then you could probably watch it without a commentary. If you're watching cricket or golf, 2 or 3 minutes can go by really without anybody needing to say anything. You can see for yourself. But somehow football's not quite the same without a commentator that you can get mad at.
So, are you still with ITV?
No. ITV were very, very good to me. I first joined ITV I worked for regional TV in the northwest of England, Granada Television, from kind of 1988 through to 1992. And then I joined the BBC for 4 years. And then in 1996, ITV came to take me back. Brian Moore, the late great Brian Moore, retired in 1998. So they wanted somebody to come in and kind of understudy him and take over from him when he retired. And so from 1998 all the way through till, well, I guess the last work I did for them was at the last Euros. So right through till last year, I've had an association with ITV, and I've benefited a great deal from it. So no. I've done some work for Amazon Prime in the Premier League in December, but most of my work, nearly all of my work now, is for CBS Sports. I commentated on the Carabao Cup final for them at the weekend. I was at Liverpool against Paris Saint-Germain last Tuesday, and I've just been told that my next game will be Arsenal versus Real Madrid in a couple of weeks' time. So I've got a couple of weeks to get my head around that and get ready for it.
So I'm presuming you'll be doing Soccer Aid?
No, I don't do Soccer Aid anymore because that's an ITV broadcast. No, I haven't done Soccer Aid the last 2 or 3 Soccer Aids. Pretty much really since, as I say, in the summer of 2021, ITV decided to appoint a younger commentator, senior commentator, and I've only done some occasional work for them on FA Cup ties and the major international tournaments since then. No, Sam Matterface has been their sort of main commentator since 2021, and he'll be commentating on Soccer Aid.
Because you're also, correct me if I'm wrong, have you done some FIFA stuff for the game?
Yeah, I was the kind of voice of FIFA for I think about 12 years. It was a job that I took on after John Motson kind of retired from it, the late John Motson. I took over from him. And yeah, I think my voice was on about 12 editions of FIFA and 1 or 2 of the other spin-off editions. So yeah, they were good years. But I haven't done FIFA now for probably the best part of 10 years, Darren, something like that. So yeah, I'm not involved in any other computer games. No, I mean, the other work that I've done in recent years has been mainly with CBS Sports, really, who cover the Champions League for Network in the USA. And we've got a great studio with Micah Richards, Thierry Henry, and Jamie Carragher with Kate Scott. I have Rob Green usually alongside me, who's a really, really good co-commentator. And yeah, it's great to sort of be on the road and still flying around Europe and going to the Bernabeu and San Siro and Parc des Princes and all the great stadia in the UK. I haven't done a game in Scotland probably for 2 or 3 years. I would think probably since my last Rangers TV work. So yeah, I haven't been up to your neck of the woods to do a game for 2 or 3 years.
If Pep's was to ask you, would you do it?
I think I'm happy enough with the schedule that I've got. I'm involved in 1 or 2 other things, charity stuff and some politics and stuff, and do a little bit of mentoring. So yeah, the Champions League works probably fine for now. But yeah, if there's yeah, if you buy a television company and you want a commentator, Darren, I'm your man. Yeah, you go ahead. I'll be available for you.
I wish I had the money. So do you get your travel and all that paid for?
Yeah. I mean, it's a job, and it probably doesn't seem like a proper job to a lot of people. It's a job that everybody thinks they can do. Everybody who watches football thinks they can be a football commentator, and probably can be a football commentator. It's not that difficult, but it is my profession. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a bus driver. I'm a football I'm a football commentator. So yeah, if CBS want me in Madrid or Milan, yeah, that they sort the travel out and the hotel, and I go and do the job, and they even pay me. Terrible, isn't it?
That's great. Nah, but because obviously I'll be 29 in July, so
Okay.
I kind of heard your voice on ITV in the 1999 era, early 2000s.
Yeah, just about remember that, can't you? Yeah.
It's mad to think that I would be speaking to you.
No, it's not. No, it's fine. I think we're in a an era now where obviously I did some posts on Instagram and on Twitter X and stuff, and it's kind of dangerous ground, but it does help keep you in touch with people who do listen to you and people who want to be commentators in particular. It gives me an opportunity maybe to post some information which might help them in their ambitions if that's what they want to be. Because once upon a time I had those ambitions. I was a teenager who wanted to be a football commentator long before Twitter, long before you could have that connection with the people that were doing it. You just listened to them from a distance. You never felt that you would ever meet them or have an opportunity to communicate with them in any way. But now, people do have that opportunity to sort of kind of reach me if they really want to, and certainly to listen to any content that I post, which is about the job. And it's a different relationship that you have with your audience than probably when I was your age.
So, see the lanyards that you get with the press, media, do you get to keep them?
Do you read that?
Nice.
So that's the Carabao Cup final on Sunday. Do you know who that is? Yeah. That's my better side. That.
I didn't even know you could keep them.
And you can see there the CBS. That's who I was working for. And these different numbers were different access to different parts of Wembley Stadium. So I could go down to the pitch side and talk to